Hi, you might know me as Lisa or Leigh, or you might not know me at all. Either way, I'm here to ask for just a few minutes of your time because I think I have something important to say. Let me begin with a related aside that rhetoric is always going to exist as long as there's some kind of political divide, and both sides are guilty. But it's really important that we look at what exactly it is we're saying. The left wing is by no means innocent in all of this, but I really want to focus on a piece of right wing rhetoric I found particularly troublesome. Recently, I went on Facebook to find that a family member had posted that Democratic voter turnout in his state was so high because Democrats just don't have jobs. Now, my first impulse was to respond defensively, to inform this person that my very liberal husband was unable to make the caucus in my state because he was working. But I knew that responding like that would only start a fight, so I scrolled on by. Still, I'm left asking, is this where rhetoric has taken the right wing? To claim now not only are poor people lazy, but also those who would see our country base more of its values on fairness and compassion. To glorify the amassing of wealth, the hoarding of capital, when so many people are struggling just to keep food on their tables. Trump says you can never be too greedy. Just think about that for a second. You can never be too greedy. Do you think he would be singing that same tune if he hadn't been born into privilege? If he had known poverty and desperation for even a short period in his life? How hard is it to funnel inherited wealth? To have lived a life in which no one has ever told you, you can't have that. It's easy to be selfish. That takes no personal strength of character. And it's just as easy to succumb to apathy and hate. That takes no personal fortitude at all. Now, compassion, that takes strength. It's a heavy burden to give a shit. I know. The top 200 highest paid Americans are earning salaries between over $12.5 million and $156 million a year. And these figures don't reflect other sources of income like stocks and other types of investments, which rich people, and the richer they are, typically have more capital in. For example, in 2013, Apple's CEO Tim Cook made almost $74 million in stock options alone. How much work can a person possibly do in even a 12 to 14 hour workday to justly earn $156 million in a year? That's thousands of dollars per hour. Are these executives any less lazy than the people who are scrubbing their company's toilets? How much are you personally worth? How desperate for food, shelter, clothing would you have to be to scrub toilets for a living? To flip burgers, to work on an assembly line, or to work at Walmart? And yet American rhetoric has somehow deemed the people who work these arduous jobs as lazy. But it's perfectly acceptable for CEOs and other high-paid executives to limit minimum wage so, what, they can afford that extra yacht, a fifth vacation home, a 10th luxury car, pretty jewelry, fine dining, because somehow these people deserve the very best because they were afforded more opportunities than the people stuck at the bottom. How is it that such inhumane attitudes have deemed these people the good guys, and the ones who are suffering low-paid dead-end jobs and lacking the means to rise above them, by the way, as the bad guys? What have we come to? And this apathy or antipathy that we're currently unleashing on a global scale is most assuredly going to bring jihad onto American soil. I'm not sure how many of you understand how gangs gain and keep their numbers, how they turn innocent children into killers, what motivates people to even be a part of that lifestyle. I'm going to try to explain it to you in as simple a terms possible. Poverty, segregation, desperation, resentment, and disillusionment. You go to any ghetto and ask the darker-skinned kids if segregation is alive and well in our country, you will receive a resounding yes. Ask them how many people they know who are affiliated with gangs, and most will know at least a few. Think of ISIS as one big gang that sprang out of political unrest, hatred, and resentment. The more segregation and hatred we send their way, the more fuel we add to their fire. And even more, the more hatred we show Muslims who are not affiliated with ISIS and similar movements, only fans new flames. The US News shares the Islamic State group derives its power from the narrative that the West hates Muslims and that America is actively trying to destroy Islam. Comments like presidential candidate Donald Trump's in the wake of the San Bernardino shooting do nothing to improve US national security. That's not to say that we shouldn't take action to ensure radicalized Muslims don't have the opportunity to organize another 9/11. It means we need to be careful about our approach, not inadvertently lean the focus directly, squarely onto us. It means we need to take measures to ensure we're not creating more radicals as the result of our actions. Hate begets hate. The choices we make are going to have an impact on our society. Please, let's make sure we're making the right choices. LA Times' David Horsey wrote, Trump's appeals to hypernationalism, his scapegoating of ethnic groups, his fear-driven appeals to disgruntled working-class voters, and his presentation of himself as the strong man who can fix every problem through force of his will, all have echoes of fascist political leaders of the past. While I know this might sound like rhetoric to those of you who support Trump, please know this is a fear that most of us who oppose him have come to independently. Another bit of rhetoric among the right is he tells it like it is. He says what he means, or he's just saying what everybody else is thinking. My response to that is it really such a good thing to lack a personal filter? Moreover, is he really saying what everyone is thinking? What are you thinking? Are you filled with so much hate that you would be willing to ostracize roughly 23% of the world's population for the actions of a few? Or are you not hateful but maybe afraid? I'm afraid. I'm afraid of ISIS. I'm afraid of the current global dynamic. I'm afraid of religious extremism growing and destroying even more lives. But I'm also afraid of what this fear is doing to us as a nation, as human beings. I'm afraid that quick words, cynical banter, and appeal to all this fear is going to land us in a political situation that will only worsen our foreign relations. I'm afraid that this country is going to lose itself in this whole mess, who we are. America, the land of the free, the melting pot, the land of opportunity and diversity and the American dream. I see it all slipping away every time somebody says, he says what we're all thinking. No, that's not what we're all thinking. That's what the selfish, the careless, and the rash are thinking. He says what the fearful want to hear. But he has no real solutions. Bomb the shit out of them? Go after terrorists' families? Close our borders until we can figure out what the hell is going on? These kinds of words, they might satiate our fears, but they have no real-world practical value. Think about it. Think about a United States that levels entire regions, terrorists and innocents alike. Think about an America that bloodies its hands in a way that will only beg for greater retribution. What do we do once we halt immigration? What then? Don't we already really know what the hell is going on? It's ugly and it's scary. But if we succumb to all this fear and hate, to the point of uncompromising banishment or even genocide, are we any better than the fanatics fueling that fear? Where do we draw the line? I'm not an expert on politics, but I have put more thought into the social and economic aspects than many. So much thought that I've dedicated over a decade of my life to writing dystopian literature, which is speculative fiction that looks at society, the collective choices we make, and the possible repercussions to those choices. The dystopian author in me sees the choices we are making right now. I see a world headed toward chaos. I'm not asking you to switch political parties or even the deepest of your ideals. I'm imploring you. Please consider the rhetoric you're adhering to right now. Look at it carefully. Consider the reasons behind your choice in candidates and ask yourself, am I doing this for the right reasons? Or am I letting my fear guide me into blindness? Thank you for your time.